Hey, merriment makers. Today I want to talk about speaking truth that feels like true to you, being as objective as you can about observations, having courage to speak up, having courage to second when people speak up, and being able to have the courage to leave situations that don't feel right to you. Let's get into it. I've recorded some episodes in the past that are kind of in the same vein about speaking the truth, having truth tellers in your life, being judgmental, not being judgmental, what judgmental even means, and you can listen to those as well. And today I want to talk about, well, I already told you. I already told you the couple things. So I also have autism. There's a spectrum of autism, and part of what that means for me is the way that I view things as facts. And one of the ways that I knew when it was introduced to me as an idea, I guess that was 2 years ago, was that autism was true for me, was that my whole life, when I say things, a lot of people will tell me that I'm really harsh, I'm really blunt, I'm really obnoxious, I'm really rude. And I don't really see the things that I'm saying to be rude or even that I'm intending them to be mean or rude. Sometimes, yeah. I think there's a difference between stirring the pot to be intentionally rude to hurt someone's feelings and then to make an observation, right? So recently I was having a conversation with somebody and we were talking about text tone, of a lack of, right? How you can be having a conversation with someone through text and how easily it can be to project your own feelings onto that person and have no idea what you guys are taking away from the conversation. And I told them how I really enjoy the fact that Matt and I both have autism, so it's really nice that unless someone is being snarky, sarcastic, or intentionally mean, then, which is usually me, then it is always literal what we're saying on text message or in person, really. We know that we are just stating facts and that what we're saying is true to the best of our knowledge, and we're not trying to fight with the other person, we're just giving information. And there's no mixed messages, there's no reading between the lines, there's no like, what does she really mean kind of thing. It's just, here's how it is. And that's really helpful. And then we started talking about how I have autism and how what I just mentioned that I one of the things that it is for me is that I see things differently than other people. The way that I look at something is much more like a child. You know, when you have like a child in a stroller or just walking around on the street and they see someone that has an irregularity, they will point and say like, "Oh, what's that?" Right? And a lot of us, I think, even without having autism or anything, still feel that in our bodies, in our minds. We have an initial thought of that's different just because of our amygdala. Like there's a fear center in our brains that is like, stay close to what is similar because similar equals safe, because that's your tribe, that's what's safe. Different equals danger, right? Just from a survival standpoint, that's still in our DNA. But I am just curious, I guess, and there is still something in me, maybe that is from autism, that is interested in saying it out loud without a filter. It's a natural thing that the same way that I want to compliment you if I think something looks nice, I also want to say out loud when I think something looks irregular or looks bad. And the person that I was having this conversation with looked like very offended at the whole concept of that, and was like, so you would just kind of go up to somebody and say that you didn't like their hair without prompting, or if somebody asked you if you liked their hair, you would tell them that it looked bad either way. And I said, I mean, yeah, like that's what's instinctual inside of me since I've been a child, since I've even as an adult, like it's still inside of me. But because of kind of like the way that you're reacting right now, I have learned how to control those responses, how to, or I guess my own initial filter, because of that social interaction and that reaction to the stimulus of me. So if I say something that is perceived as negative, I've been able to generalize what those things are and not say those kinds of things because I don't want to be yelled at. I don't want to be chastised. I don't want to be taken away as a friend. It doesn't mean that I don't still think or believe or feel those things. It's that I've learned how to not do them anymore, which is a way to not be myself. And I've learned over the past couple of years that that's what that is called masking. And that's a term that's not exclusive to autism. It's really anything that we do that's not being your true self, right? As a result of like what people, society, your culture, your family, your friends, whatever, expect you to do in alignment with their expectations. So let's talk about like the fact that it's a compliment. So if I like your hair, right, I say, I love your hair today. That's perceived as a compliment. If I say, I don't like your hair, that's perceived as being mean, right? All I have done is taken the same stimulus, and based on my perception of it, I have applied one word, like or don't like, in regards to it and made an observation. Now, if that observation is aligned with your desire, the recipient on the other side, their desire of their reality, if it aligns with their desires, their ego, their reality, then it becomes a compliment. If it does not align with those things, then it becomes something mean. And I know that this maybe feels antithetical to being a merriment maker, to my business, to the elements of kindness as a value. And I understand that. And also, I can't control the way that my brain operates. And also, I don't necessarily think not liking someone's hair or noticing the way that I perceive something to be intentionally malicious or mean. I feel like it simply is. There's a lot of things that I don't necessarily feel are good or bad. I think that they are. Now, is going out of my way to say something that doesn't align with someone's reality, ego, and desires to perpetuate their feelings of self-esteem mean? That's something that I've been grappling with my whole adult life. I don't know. I don't know if, I mean, and I have actively wrestled with creating a different filter for myself. So I don't say all the things that don't align with those things. I do try to only say compliments. But I do want to say that there are plenty of people who experience their thoughts the way that I do. And sometimes there are going to be things that we hear that are critiques, that are not in alignment with our desires, ego, reality, that we're trying to build, and they're not meant to break you down. They're not meant to derail your entire existence. Someone not liking your hair, or even liking the person that you're voting for, or liking the whole concept of your business, or like your partner in life. Like, it can be something really small, like the thing that you collect, or your entire mission of what you want to do to change the world. People cannot like those things. And whether or not they say them to your face or not doesn't really it shouldn't, I don't think, make a difference. I think we can be so sincere about what we like that it doesn't really matter. I think that this is all a big giant game of life, that we're on a big rock and we made up a word for what we're doing. And if you want to keep doing it, then keep doing it. And for as many people that agree with you, there's going to be even more that don't agree with you. And someone telling you that they don't like it shouldn't interfere with what you're doing. And I know that psychologically we have a negativity bias and we focus on things that interrupt the validation of our current reality and goals. However, I think that we need to focus on getting a little tougher. I think the tough self-love that we need is being able to take criticism sometimes. I I don't know, like when I had this conversation, one of the people that was part of it said, you know, what's really cool about the way that you process information must be, and they don't really know me that well. They said, one of the cool ways about learning this about you, the way that you process information, looking at things as neither good nor bad, it just is, must be that when you walk into a room, you're not really concerned with how people perceive you. Like, you probably don't really care about what other people think. And that's deeply true. I care about like a handful of people's opinions because I respect them. And if I need advice, those are the people that I would go to. But ultimately, I really only care about what I'm doing. And I think that's one of the reasons that people enjoy me, follow me online, care about my own advice, because I am deeply intrinsically guided. I just do what I want when I want. Not in a way that necessarily harms others, right? But it's I'm here and this is what I want to do. And I don't care if I'm fat or loud or bright or offensive to you. This is what feels right to me. And if this inspires you to do what feels good to you, then please do so. But I'm not gonna dial this back because it's annoying to you. I'm so sorry. But I'm not sorry. And I realized that that person making that connection was very right. And I've never really thought about that connection of the autism potentially being one of those reasons for why I don't care and why that's a beautiful, beautiful blessing. So that's one thing. I really want to encourage you. I wanted to explain all that, and I wanted to encourage you to toughen up, to encourage your friends to tell you the truth, to encourage yourself to start telling the truth. And yeah, unsolicited advice is annoying. It can be annoying. It can say, you can say something like, I have a thought if you want it. I have something if you want it. Would you like help with that? That's fine. You can start doing that too. Especially if you have been like a people pleaser or a sycophant your whole life. That's a really, really good start. And, you know, one of the things that people like about me, sometimes until it applies to them, you can listen to that in like the I think it's called the Truth Tellers episode. But you know when I'm telling the truth, and you know that when I give you a compliment, I really mean it, you know, because I don't pull punches, and if I don't like something, I'll tell you. So that means that when I tell you that I like something, it means that much more. But if you are always somebody that's like, that looks good, that is good, that's great, that's awesome, that's awesome, that's awesome, that's awesome, that's awesome, it's kind of like the girl who cried wolf. So how do we actually know when something's awesome, you know? I don't know. Okay. So I always take notes when I'm out and about. My phone is just full of it. There's no way that I could ever record the amount of podcasts that I have planned, but I wanted to try to group a couple things together here. So another thing that I wanted to talk about was, you know, have you ever been in a place where, here, I'll give an example. I was at a Neil Brennan stand-up show. Neil Brennan is actually an amazing truth teller. He does not pull punches either, and his opinion means so much. I also think he might be one of the sanest people alive right now. Just saying. But I was at a Neil Brennan concert like last year. It was his Crazy Good tour. And there was this guy in front of us, and the seats weren't tiered. We were just on a floor. And there was this guy that was like checking his phone constantly. And it was one of those alarms on his phone where every time he gets a text message, it just like lights up like a siren. And it was on loud. Like, it was just insane what was happening. Everything he was doing was insanely annoying. It was distracting. I also have synesthesia, so I'm like looking at that constantly and getting like extra visuals from this phone. It's horrible. And I really, really wanted to see him, Neil Brennan. And I don't understand the level of lack of self-awareness that we have as a culture right now, but you could tell that every single person sitting next to him, sitting behind him, was deeply, deeply annoyed, right? And I get that most people don't like conflict. I don't understand why, but I understand that they don't, okay? I don't mind conflict. I don't. And I understand that most people aren't going to be like me and be willing to say something. I really do. I get that based on experience, I understand that I'm the person that's willing to say something. So after a while, after seeing that it was happening, I looked at him and I said, hey, I tapped him and I was like, hey, can you turn your phone off with the sound and the audio? Because it's very distracting. And he was like 19 and he was very rude and dismissive. And he was like, why don't you just watch the show? You know, like, really rude. And he like got his girlfriend, he like hugged his girlfriend, and then they just started talking to each other the whole time. And my point here is that everybody that was around could have said, yeah. Like, his response to me was like, it's not bothering anyone. Why don't you just watch the show? And everyone, including my boyfriend, could have been like, yeah, thank you for saying something. Like, all you had to do was just say yeah at once. It takes a lot of energy and courage to start the inertia of something, but it takes so much less to raise your hand and be like, me too, right? So the next time that you see someone have the courage, the guts to speak up, I really, really, really encourage and beg of you to say me too. Because that person probably sat there for a while, the same way that you were being affected by that situation, and they are now the target of all of that conflict. They don't really want to be doing it either most of the time, but they are doing it on behalf of not just of themselves, but of all of you. And if you can't just say, like, it is distracting, and then look around, try to make some eye contact with everybody else and be like, right, guys? Like, it's not that hard. Because if it's between two people, it's between them right there. But if everybody in the vicinity says, yeah, then it becomes like a group effort, you know? And that guy now has some accountability. And then maybe he'll stop, actually. But because it became about one person, it's like a road rage situation. I'm just saying, if somebody has the courage to speak up and you agree with them, then stand up next to them. And then the other thing that I was going to say was I was out in a different city, and I wanted to get a manicure and a pedicure. And I went to this new place. It was somewhere I'd never been before, which was a gamble. Life is a gamble. And I asked for a manicure and pedicure, and I sat down, and this woman was the rudest person that I've ever had give me a manicure. She was like berating me for all these things that were wrong with my nails. She was mad at the way that I was literally holding my hand. She kept kind of like slapping my fingers. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I was really not happy with what was happening. And I could also tell, I know this is very I could tell that she was talking about me as well. Like the body language, every time I would say something, she would look and she would roll her eyes, and it was a lot. So I had requested a manicure and a pedicure, and I was getting the manicure done first. And as soon as it was done, I said, "How much was the manicure?" And she told me, and I got cash out of my purse. I put it down and I said, "I don't want the pedicure anymore." And I walked out. And I just want to let you know that sometimes you feel that there's an obligation to stay in anything, really. But particularly, like in this case, in a service, maybe I could have left in the middle of the manicure too. I could have. I just decided that I really wanted my hands done, the fingers done for the rest of it. It was just worth it to me in that moment to stay to finish all 10 fingers. But I knew that it was not worth it for me to stay in there for another however long to get my toes done. And that is definitely a very champagne-y kind of problem. But my point is that the social contract, so to speak, of saying that I had agreed to stay for a pedicure means nothing if they are now negating that with a lack of kindness, right? So, yeah, I just want to let you know that you are allowed to leave a party, a family meeting, a grocery store, a line at a cash register. You are allowed to know that that lady is mean and go in a different line. You're allowed to not do the next thing until you get paid for the last one. You are allowed to start charging just for your proposals. You're allowed to set higher standards for whatever it is that you want to do. Whatever it is that you want to do. And you're allowed to leave. You're allowed to, and you're also allowed to not explain the whole thing. You don't have, that's something that I've been doing a lot of lately, where in my head, I do these things where sometimes it's just helpful for me to auditorily process it because I need to. Still, for some reason, I want to kind of like say the fight out loud, at least on my end, like the things that I want to say to the person. But I no longer need to say them directly to the person. I just will say it out loud in my car. And before I needed to have like the conflict out loud with the person, but now I can just say, "I'm not getting the pedicure." Leave the money on the table and leave. And they can wonder what happened, and that's okay. And then I'll say out loud in the car as I drive away all the reasons that they were rude and process that and then be done with it. And everything else, like, I think a lot of my life has been taken up by needing to feel that I get a sense of justice when things happen, needing to tell people how things went wrong, why they were wrong, how they were wrong, in my opinion. And it's also not true, right? Like, I just did a podcast, recorded a podcast for the Merriment Makers about the judge archetype for the advocacy module that we're doing, and how morality and values are all things that we decide. So even in my opinion of how that woman was treating me at the salon for my nails, rude is subjective, right? Her telling me what was wrong with my nails could be considered informative. Her talking about me could be cultural. Her telling, you know what I mean? Like, every single thing that she did that I was considering rude, she might not consider rude. The same way that when I speak and say that I don't like your hair, that I don't consider rude, I consider to be an observation, right? So I really encourage you to play the devil's advocate with everything that you do. If you can do it during the experience, you're in such a better place. You're in such a more mindful experience, and you experience less judging than you will and less anger and less fear and less shame and less sadness. And the best thing to do if you can't do that is to do it after the fact and have some sort of like debriefing reflective period where you're like, okay, devil's advocate, why were they doing that? And you can, I try to, play the devil's advocate with coaching and do like, okay, so they didn't text you. Well, what is the weirdest case scenario of why you didn't get a text? Could a cell tower have gone down? Did they die? You know what I mean? Like, it's not about you. It's not about you. Stop making it about you. Stop making it about your opinions and your values and making it all personal about you. It's not. Most of the time, it's not. Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe you were having a bad day. Maybe you were both having a bad day. Maybe there's no electricity. Maybe this is a simulation. I don't know. But it's not likely about you. So the same way that I am experiencing something different where I'm like, this is the way that I'm filtering information and I'm sorry that it's offending you, but I feel like this is the truth. That's the same thing as, the way that I experienced that manicure. And the same way that I'm allowed to leave that manicure, people are also allowed to leave my presence. And I'm also allowed to go back there and try to establish a boundary. And people are also allowed to establish a boundary with me. We're all just trying to make it work. And we're all allowed to experience freedom to the best of our ability. And that means what you say and where you go. And yeah, we're all just trying to coexist. And sometimes that means having your phone on at the Neil Brennan concert because you have an emergency. And sometimes that means asking the person in front of you to turn it off because you paid money to see this thing. And sometimes it means looking back 10 years later and being like, I can't believe I was the kind of person that left my phone on at a Neil Brennan concert. That's so crazy. And sometimes it's like, I can't believe I'm the kind of person that cares now and asks people to turn it off. So I don't know. I hope you get what I'm trying to say. I think you do. Seeing truth is, I don't know that there's one truth. I don't know if there's good or bad. I think things just are. I think we're just here. And I'm glad you are. I'm glad that I am. And I'm glad that we get to share space and time together. If you want to get that judge archetype podcast for the Merriment Makers in the advocacy module, come on over, uncustomary.org/merriment-makers, or you can just go to uncustomary.org. That maybe is a little easier. And you can start for just $39. 1,000 resources, a lot of services. There's like 30-something modules. It's insane what you can do for 88% off your first month. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.